So for the coronary arteries, their whole purpose is to give blood to the heart because the heart's working all the time. It needs its own blood supply that it doesn't really share with the rest of the body. So as oxygenated blood is leaving the aorta and going out to the body, there's a couple of branches that kind of peel away from it. And one of those branches, you can see here, is the right coronary artery. So it just, steals a little bit of oxygenated blood. And you have the right coronary artery that's basically going to serve right side of the heart. So it comes around and it's going to branch down here at the side of the heart. So this is the marginal artery. And I think of the marginal artery like the margins of your paper. It's off to the side, so it's over here. And then you have, you don't have to know that one. So right is here and very visible. The left coronary artery is going to go and feed the left side of the heart. It goes underneath the pulmonary trunk, so you can't see it right now. And it continues underneath the auricle, and we can't flip this auricle, so you still can't see it. It continues over here, and it's the same artery, but it changes name as it travels in a different area of the heart. So left coronary up to this point, not visible, but it continues around the heart, and that's the circumflex artery.
So what is that?
Kind of like a circle, a curve. So it'll continue. You have a branch from the left coronary right here, and if left coronary is kind of going east-west, this branch goes north-south. So this is anterior, because it's the front of the heart, interventricular artery, and it goes down this seam of the heart all the way around to the back side. And of course the back side is just called posterior interventricular. But you've got this groove here that basically represents, more or less, this wall that separates the right and left ventricles. So that's the interventricular septum in between the ventricles, and this is the groove, the groove, the interventricular sulcus. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so IV artery is still there. Posterior IV artery. So I think we've covered the arteries. And then for the veins, like you've provided blood to the heart, and now you're going to capture all of that blood again, and this time it's deoxygenated and filled up with metabolic waste. So you have, blue veins that kind of correlate with these same arteries. So if you have anterior IV artery, alongside of it, this major blue one that comes down is the great cardiac vein, so G. And then you have anterior cardiac veins, and these branch really well and capture all of this blood. So anterior, great anterior, and then the vein that corresponds to the marginal artery is the small artery, small vein. So it spells G-A-S. And that's how I remember it.
So on the right side you have gas? Or
yes.
Okay.
You have gas going to the right.
Okay, that's neat.
If we get the back side, so we had circumflex artery, there's a branch here, we're going to ignore it. The vein itself, like all of these great GAS veins, all kind of feed into this large pool right here, which is the coronary sinus. So this is blood that is deoxygenated. It needs to be returned to the system. And all of this blood goes back under here into, not there, into the right atrium, which is receiving a bunch of deoxygenated blood anyway. So the right atrium, there's the opening to the coronary sinus. And here, to us, it looks like an entryway, but it's an exit. Blood's coming from the heart into the right atrium. Blood's coming from the head and neck area through the superior vena cava into the right atrium. And from the lower body through the inferior vena cava into the right atrium. So right atrium is only concerned with collecting all the deoxygenated blood. So I think that covers all of our coronary arteries, right? Or coronary vessels. Posterior IV artery, we listed one on the back.
So during lecture, are you going to go over like heart murmurs and mitral valve prolapse?
Yeah, we'll mention it. Kind of once we nail down all of the structure and say, this is what it looks like when it works well. We'll say, oh, and when it doesn't work well, these things happen.
It's actually, my grandfather-in-law, some of his heart is actually, the blood in it is dried up. Like, I don't know how he's still living. And I just think that's pretty crazy. That he's had so many stents and stuff that...
Like if it's in a vessel or if it's in the chamber.
It could dry up. But still work.
You still recording?
Find out where it is, because I'm not sure. I mean, location does matter. It depends on. Okay. Deoxygenated blood will come from 3 places: coronary sinus, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, all collect in the right atrium. And in the right atrium is covered by this flap, which is the auricle. So the atrium is the chambers, the space that's kind of hard to label a space. But the auricle is just kind of reserve area. So if excess blood happens to come in here, it can kind of fill out this area. So deoxygenated blood comes through here. It's going to go through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. And the right ventricle is going to eject it. It's not very intuitive, but it ejects it from here through the pulmonary semilunar valve into the pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary kind of gives away its destination. Pulmonary trunk is going to branch into right and left pulmonary arteries that take deoxygenated blood away from the heart to the lungs, picks up oxygen, is going to return along the pulmonary veins, which are red. And both of those veins, I guess we can show it here.
Without the lungs, we'd really be in trouble in oxygen. They really work together.
Yeah, it's critical. And if there's a problem here, it backs up into the lungs.
Is that why the fluids and stuff fill up in the lungs?
Sometimes. So this is the back side of the left atrium. So oxygenated blood enters left atrium, goes through the bicuspid, also called mitral valve, into the left ventricle. And we know it's the left ventricle because it's on the left side. And it has this real thick wall here. And although right and left ventricle receive the same amount of blood, like the same volume, left ventricle has more valuable blood. It's oxygenated and more concerned about getting it out to the body quicker, so it works harder, and so the muscle that works harder is bigger. So a thick wall, I mean, just think left. So that blood's going to be ejected from left ventricle through the kind of hidden aortic semilunar valve, through the aorta, and so blood directed to the lower body is going to go through the aortic arch and is going to curve back and go down the descending aorta, abdominal, all the way down. And then blood directed to head and neck areas is going to leave through these vessels. So you have brachiocephalic artery, which comes up, and we can't see it here, but it'll come up and branch into right subclavian that goes underneath your clavicle, right carotid, common carotid, which goes up the neck. So that covers the brachiocephalic, brachio-arm cephalic head, covers the right side. And then you don't have a brachiocephalic on the left, but you do have left common carotid that goes up your neck, left subclavian here that's going to go to your left under your clavicle out to your arm. Now for the details. So the very exterior part of the heart, which you can kind of see as this yellow line, is visceral pericardium. And then all the red is this middle layer, and that's all muscle, so that's myocardium. And then the inner surface of the ventricles and atria is endocardium. So it's real slick, so blood can come in and can, whoosh through there, and it shouldn't get stuck. So it's a real slick surface. And then you have, for the myocardium, it's all myocardium, but it's this different types of muscle based on location